a student in SSU Graduate School, and a JO personnel in BTR Western Samar Provincial Office. So first of all, I would like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to accommodate me in conducting this interview. This is in relation to our subject on executive leadership and administrative decision making. So, salamat po.
Good afternoon, Grace.
Yes, sir. I have a list of questions here, but before anything else, can you give us a brief introduction of yourself and how long have you been in government service?
I am Jefferson Cabatanya. I'm currently the provincial head of the Bureau of the Treasury Samar Provincial Office. I am also a part-time lecturer at the Eastern Visayas State University in the graduate school. It's my 17th year in the government service.
Oh, wow. Tagal nyo na po pala sa service, sir. So, for the longest time that you have been working in the government, how would you describe your experience?
I can describe it as both humbling and rewarding.
Oh. So, how does one rise to a leadership position, sir? What do you think is the ano?
Before you rise to a leadership position, of course, you have to start from being in the rank and file. You have to work your way up because, especially in the government service, our position is not inherited. You really have to prove yourself and work with a lot of people who believes in your capabilities for you to rise up.
So, sir, before you have worked in a different agency po?
Yes, in those 17 years, I've worked with BIR for 10 years and currently I'm on my 7th year here in the Bureau of the Treasury.
So, sa start, you were a JO then or already a permanent employee po dun sa BIR?
I began my government service with BIR as a regular employee.
Oh.
Yes.
So, sir, so the next question would be, do you believe in a saying that good leaders are made and not born?
Yes, I'm a firm believer of that because based on my experience, I did not get my position because somebody just gave it to me overnight. I have to work my way up. I have to work with a lot of different leaders and then learn from their styles, skills, and imbibe their work ethics to be able to rise up. And I believe that leadership should be something that you also envision yourself, but in envisioning yourself as a leader, you also have to do your best and be diligent as well.
So, it's basically based on experience and learnings po?
Yes, basically.
Yeah. So, what's one personal experience you've had that has made you into a better leader?
I can cite a personal experience. Maybe I was not yet in the position of a leadership position because most of the leaders in the government, they serve like they rose from the ranks. And then most of the experiences that mold them are those experiences when they are still starting in the organization, learning the ropes. When I was in the BIR, there were a lot of challenges because the agency itself is very dynamic. So I really learned a lot from working with tough bosses, and then they were able to teach me and then share with me their skills, their knowledge, and intelligence. And working with top bosses, there are few instances where you will really have to keep up with the challenge. So I think those were the things that I was able to get from my 17 years of experience that made me as who I am today.
So, what would be the challenge, sir? Ano po yung mga challenge na na-face nyo in your experience as a leader, and how did you overcome that po?
So when I became a leader, when I handled people, already have my staff, I think I can say I wasn't really that so challenged because I was more of my experiences really were attributed as to when I was starting with the bureau, with the organization. And at that time, I wasn't a leader yet. But I can say that I've been assuming some leadership positions. You need not be in a higher position for you to become a leader. But, well, I can say if I'm going to answer the question, probably the challenge will be working with different kinds of people, different ages, different personalities and gender. But because of my previous experience in the private sector, where I really started my career, I really learned to deal with different types of personalities. That's why I'm able to navigate whatever challenges that comes along with the position.
So what do you think is the most important skill of a leader?
The most important skill is, I think, conceptual skills.
And can you
You
elaborate
should have a
that?
conceptual skill as a leader because you're able to look into the organization as a whole, a bigger picture. Because you're in that position where you can see everybody, you can understand, you can have a better grasp of the operations, better grasp of the whole organization, wherein you can see the big picture. And when you can see the big picture, you can also have this ability to foresee the future of the organization. That is also forward thinking in other words. So if you have conceptual skills, you'll be able to articulate that to your people, how the organization can move towards better, a better levels, so to speak.
So the next question would be, there are at least 5 common leadership styles: the authoritative, democratic, transformational, coaching, and the laissez-faire style. So which of these leadership styles do you prefer to use?
I would prefer transformational leadership. It's because you don't only transform yourself, you also transform the system and the social norms in the organization. At the same time, you also transform the people because when you are a transformational leader, you also train people to become leaders in the future. So that's the best
So
leadership
is
style.
there any situations ba where you would rather use other styles of leadership, or do you always just use the transformational style?
Well, of course, there are instances where you have to be autocratic. For instance, if there's sense of urgency, there's a sense of emergency. For example, a particular style of leadership would warrant the situation. For example, you are in a crisis situation where you need to act, you need to lead other people forcefully and exercise coercion and practice some kind of a forceful stance for you to deliver, to accomplish something in a short span of time. You have to be autocratic, but there are also instances wherein you need to get the point of view of your staff, of your colleagues, right? If you're not really that confident about a particular challenge or issue or problem that your organization is facing, you need to be democratic. So I think I agree with the question. You can apply other styles. You don't have to stick to one because the situation may not call for just sticking into one style of leadership.
So may naging boss na po kayo before, or your leader before na autocratic or democratic?
That's a good thing. It's a very good question. I've worked with different kinds of bosses before. I mean, I have already worked probably all the styles that a boss could possibly have. And because of that, I had an advantage. I was able to learn from them. And then with different styles, with different kinds of bosses, they have different kinds of leadership styles. I think that's innate in them. So yes, I've worked with bosses with different kinds of or types of leadership styles.
So the next question would be on delegation. So can you tell us about your approach on delegation?
My approach to delegation is that you delegate and at the same time you empower. So that's delegation with empowerment and also accountability. So those are the two things that you pair with delegation. You just don't delegate and then leave everything for your people to do. You have to empower them so that they can also be assigned with more challenging tasks. Same time you can stretch them and make them flexible and adaptable to change. At the same time, you have to have accountability. That means you also demand for better performance. You also demand for review of their work, and then make sure that they don't deviate with the standards. So I think that's one.
So what are the strategies do you follow to effectively lead your team?
First of all, you have to know yourself. Of course, you have to be confident. If you're in a leadership position, you have to be confident that you are leading the team. You are leading the team towards a better position. Second, you have to know your team. Of course, you have to personally know them. We have different characteristics, attitudes. So you have to know them, know what their likes, know how they know their family, know them personally on the personal level. Because I believe that although they say work is not personal, but sometimes you also pour in your personal like emotions with your work. So you have to know your team. You have to have emotional connections with your team and with the people that you work with. So that's one strategy as well. And then you also make them understand your work, and then make them understand their work as well, and how important their even a minute or small amount of effort that they give means a difference to the entire organization. So make them realize their worth, their value, and the value of the work that they give to the organization. So that's also one strategy that you do. But at the same time, you have to have fun, because work is work is serious already, and then for some it may be challenging. So you also have to infuse fun. You have to have a good sense of humor. I mean, if you are always serious about things, right? So it might be more stressful. So you have to have fun with your team, and then learn how to celebrate their success. For example, they have personal success with their family, with their kids. Know that, and then you also celebrate with them, and celebrate the success that you have, and you can share with your entire team. For example, you have accomplished something, so celebrate that so that they can always remember that everything that we do, we also have an end goal to succeed and to achieve something. At the same time, you also learn to compliment them. I mean, compliment them with their work, and then learn to give praise, like right? Don't spare your praises when it is warranted. Learn how to appreciate their work, and by that they will also pass on the positivity to other people and towards your customers, because they feel that they are rewarded.
So how do you keep your team motivated, sir?
So you keep your team motivated by not giving unnecessary tasks. That's number one. Because if you burden them with so many tasks, it will burn them out. So that's one thing. You may not be able to do everything for your team, for example, because you are also tied up with your own work. So what you do is that you simplify things for them. I mean, you simplify things because that is your way of also helping them out. If you can think of ways on how to simplify work for your team, that's a work of a leader, because you also give them that safe space, at the same time that breathing space for them to innovate by themselves, right? And then do some initiative that would also make them make their work easier. So that's number two. And also you also motivate them by asking for their ideas. May include them in the decision making, because but in that way you also make them feel that they're part of the team. It's not always your ideas that should always prevail. So be open to their ideas. And then another thing is that I think dapat hindi ka rin pikon. I mean, di ba, may mga instances that they have better ideas. So you have to accept that they are better than you. There are instances that they will be better in things. They might be good or much better in a particular area of operation or work in your organization, because they're there like almost round the clock. They're serving the customers directly. In our instance, in our organization, you might be better than I do when it comes to facing the customer and then attending to their needs in a particular service. So you have to recognize that, and then recognize their ideas. Listen to them always if they have suggestions, so that no secrets or no irregularities will come unnoticed on your part. So let that channels of the communications be opened always for everybody to have a smooth relationship, be motivated to work, right? And then and next to that is you also have to provide for them. For example, make sure that you're able to provide the necessary things for them to like do their work. For example, supplies, as simple as supplies, right? So if you don't provide for the supplies, you don't make an effort to provide them the supplies. How would they be willing to work? How would your employees be motivated to work? For example, facilities, equipment. So make sure, and then in a safe environment, safe space, safe office, clean office. So if your office is not organized, you will be having dissatisfied employees and people as well, because you don't provide them with a good working space. I think that's one thing also that would make you look forward to going to work, right? If you're working, if you don't have a good office space or environment, you might feel frustrated, right? And then you help also your employees with their advancement and development in their career. So it's a matter of encouraging them. Like for example, I encourage you to study, right?
Yes.
Study masters, you study or you pursue your review for the CPA board, whatever you want. It's always going forward, making yourself better always in career, because remember, in the government, much is required from every employees. It's not always that you have already graduated in college and then passed the civil service exam, that everything is enough. So you always have to look for ways to update your portfolio, update your credentials. You go to school, you enroll in a master's degree program, you enroll in a doctorate degree. So, because that's the life of a government employee, I think. So, as a leader, you also you encourage the development aspect, career and development of the growth and development of your employees. So, you also send them to trainings, right, and encourage them to attend trainings so that they can sharpen their skills, not just in the experience that they have in their work. So I think those are the things that would make our employees or our people get motivated.
Thank you, sir. So in an organization, conflicts are mostly inevitable. So the next question would be, how would you handle these conflicts within your team?
So, luckily, during my time as a leader, I have not encountered any major conflict right? So if there are conflicts, it could be conflict of ideas, conflict of, um, shall I say, minute conflict over a certain um, provision of law, or a certain direction, right, or procedure that we can easily, of course, settle. But if ever that comes, if there is a conflict, number one, you have to listen. That's why we're given two ears, right, and one mouth,
Yes.
because it's important for us to listen. I think it's essential for us to listen more, and by listening, we can learn from the conversations, and from the conversations we can derive answers to whatever conflict or questions or issues that uh, that are the reason why the conflict is there in the first place. But another thing is that you also, with listening, you can also encourage those who don't speak, to at least say something, because there are people might be who talk more, and then there might be other employees who talk less. So you encourage those people who talk less to, of course,
Speak up.
express or speak up, whatever they want. I might say it's more of conflict avoidance. If you can avoid a conflict from happening, at the better. But of course, it's inevitable. Conflict will always be there because we have different ideas. And fortunately, our organization is not that big, right? There are only few employees. That's how different it is with other organizations. Because if you are a larger organization, definitely there is more conflict, because of different mix of people in that place or in that office. So yeah, you just have to have a listening heart, and then so that you can address the real issue.
So sa decision making naman po, how do you make important decisions? What do you consider first?
So in decision making, you have to, if it's an important decision, and then and your decision is essential or is immediate, there is immediacy, you have to be decisive. So you have to be decisive. But if there's a chance for you to study the different aspects of why you need to decide, or the reason why you have to come up with a decision, if you still have time, you have to be logical in making a decision. Specifically, if that decision would affect not just yourself but other people, and has a great impact in the whole organization. So yeah, you have to be logical.
So may step-by-step process po ba yung decision making?
Yeah,
Para
there's a
sa'yo?
step-by-step process
So ano,
in decision making.
ano
Of course, you have to
na-
study you have to study the what course of action you're going to take in reference to a particular a given set of information or given set of directive, right, or situation or circumstance that you're in, wherein you are asked to decide. So you have to have that. Number two is, of course, you need to, if there's a need to consult other people, right, the experts, or those people who are exposed or more experienced in the area, then you can also do that. And then after considering all those ideas, you can also rank which idea is better, right? Which idea is better, or which idea can also help bolster your idea or your decision. Or if there is a better idea, why not? You also can choose that course of action to take. And then you decide.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, can you give us some tips or advice on becoming a good leader?
There's no really one formula or for me, there is no formula to become a good leader. Cannot really say that you are a good leader. I think it has to be measured in the eyes of other people or other entities, other leaders as well, or your peers. So what I can say is that number one is you have to be grounded, because sometimes being a leader makes you think, or makes a person think that he's above other people or above all else. So no one is above us. God is above us. Only God is above us, of course. If you are God-fearing, that would make you a good leader. So it's number one. You have to have faith in God, right? So every step that you do, you have to put God first. That's why when we have activities, right? When we have programs, when we start the day, we always start it with a prayer and open it with a prayer. It's because we acknowledge that there is one true leader that is leading us, and that is God. So another thing, for you to be a good leader, for me, I think this is unique in my part. I don't know if the others would also answer this way. You have to listen to your parents. I think that's the thing that I have learned. My parents, I can say they're not academically accomplished, right? They have their own challenges in the past, but still, I listen to them. It's because they're the first people that made you learn the concept of leadership. They're leading you when you were a kid, right? When you were a child, they're the ones that lead you. Your parents lead you not to go to this area, right? And then guide you to walk and everything, and you followed, and you were able to grow up and be where you are right now. So I think that's one thing. You have to obey your parents to be a good leader. And then in whatever situation you are in, you also bring those lessons that your parents gave you. So I think that's a unique concept for me. But I always think of that. So I always think of my parents. And then at first, when you were a child, you have your parents. And then they always admonish you. They sometimes punish you. You might not understand. So at that time, you will not understand why they're doing it in your mad. But later on, when you get old, you will realize that some of their teachings are really applicable to the life that you already have right now. So my last tip for you to become a good leader is you have to be brave. So courage is important because you will be facing a lot of difficult challenges. And then at the same time, you will be facing with difficult people. So you have to be brave. There is that fine line that separates a good leader from just an ordinary leader, because some ordinary leaders may be brilliant, intelligent, right? But they don't have the courage to stand for their decision, for example, or stand their ground. So, and then at the same time, how do you protect your people when there's a need to protect them? How do you protect your organization? So I think courage is important. You have to be courageous and brave to stand for what is right, and to stand for what your organization believes. Kaya nga, di ba, makikita mo naman yung mga leaders, they have that the bravery of a lion. Pero meron pang isa pala. I've learned that you have to be as brave as the lion but as cunning as the fox. Kasi minsan, hindi rin po bravery. Another thing that a leader should also possess is being wise. Being wise. So you have to in my many years of experience, you also have to be smart. Yung mga fox kasi smart yan sila, di ba? They can survive in the forest. They're not as strong as the lion or ferocious as the lion, but how do they survive? So they, because of being cunning, being smart, and working their way to to navigate the complexities of the organization. So, and then another thing also, last na lang, no, as a tip for how do you become a good leader is that you don't take credit for yourself. You have to include your team because they will be the ones who is going to support you. You're not a leader if nobody supports you, right? You're just mere a head of office. So you have, by leading other people, by making them believe in you, they will support you, and you can also train them to become good leaders in the future. So that's it.
So, yun na po yun, sir. Yung last question. So, salamat po ulit, sir, sa interview na ito. It was such an honor to have you as my interviewee. So, salamat po sa tips and advices, and have a good day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.